morning, everyone. This is Peter Dew from Corporate Communications Expert. I'm a public speaking trainer and coach, and my passion is helping you find your voice so that you can confidently and effectively share your message, have the impact, make the change, influence your audiences, your clients, your communities, and make the difference that you want to. So welcome to today's webinar on how to avoid being a distracting and a noisy presenter. How to avoid being a distracting and noisy presenter. And I mentioned about you having influence and being able to get your message across to your communities, to your customers, the people you want to create change with. Just imagine you're giving that message, and because of your distractions, because of the noise you generate, you lower the impact of your message. It's diluted because you're a noisy, distracting presenter. Let me share my screen. So how to avoid being a distracting and noisy presenter? The preface behind this is you don't want to dilute, you don't want to reduce, you don't want to distract people and lessen your impact because of simple things that you can change, that you can address from a public speaking perspective, from a presentation skills perspective. So how to participate? Ask questions as we go. Feel free to type in the message box and I'll try and answer those for you. Take notes if you want to. Think and apply to your own circumstances. Is there anything that I've described, anything that I've spoken about that you feel may affect you, that you feel may be diluting or distracting your message? And apply it to your own circumstances. So what do I mean by a noisy and distracting presenter? Noise is anything that is in the background that may catch someone's attention and take them away from your message. Now, noise can be auditory noise, it can be visual noise, it can be kinesthetic noise, it can be cognitive noise, something that gets people thinking or distracts them in their mind unrelated to your message. And that noise distracts people. You want to be able to engage and to connect with people and have their attention while you're sharing the message for their benefit. That's what I mean by noise. So let's get started into what are some of the things that we do that may be distracting, may be noisy, from an audience's perspective that we are unaware of. The first one that I see a lot of is clicking pens and playing with reading glasses. The first one, of course, is the pen that someone brings up and they click, click, click. They can also do some quite intricate gymnastics with it as well. In line with this, I have my clicker to move my PowerPoint slides forward and back. Now, if I keep fiddling with my clicker, that can unintentionally be visual noise. The clicking of the pen would be auditory noise. The gymnastics, the spinning, the juggling of the pen would be more visual noise than the auditory noise. The glasses, and I do need glasses to read, but you see the person who is unsure what to do with their glasses. And so they twirl them around and they put them on their head. And the sunlight reflects and dances and you see these kaleidoscopes of visual effects. And glasses on, then glasses off, and then glasses around. I do need glasses to read, but I do not need glasses when I'm standing and presenting. If I have some notes or a quotation I need to read, I will have my glasses off to the side and I'll put them on for purpose. I'll read you the quote, I'll read you the statistics, I'll give you the data that I can't remember, I'll remove the glasses and then carry on without the glasses. So be aware of anything that in your hands that may be seen as distracting. The other one that I see is with jewelry, and I do wear a watch and I've got a copper bangle. The chains that people wear around their necks, more so with females than men, the earrings that they twiddle with, if you have any jewelry or you bring anything up, once again, playing with it, fiddling with it will create a distraction, and that will be perceived as noise that may dilute the message that you're saying. So tip number one, keep your hands clean. Don't bring anything up that you don't need. Continuing with hands, one of the noises I see a lot of is the bouncy hand, where people bounce their hand up and down in time with what they're saying, almost as if they're conducting an orchestra. Now, gestures are really important, but as I make a gesture for you, or I talk about myself, or how it can help everyone, I try to make that gesture, but I try and avoid the bounce. It is the bounce that is the noise. It is the bounce that is distracting. And especially if you do a gesture repeatedly that doesn't mean anything. And so I'm welcoming you. Thanks for coming. What I want to talk to you now is some ways how we can significantly reduce the bounce and the noise and the distractions as a speaker, as a presenter, as a facilitator. I guess beyond the welcome, the continual use of that welcoming gesture now becomes irrelevant. And the constant use of a non-congruent gesture, not congruent with the words coming out of my mouth, can be distracting. So what do your gestures do? What do your hands do when you're speaking, presenting? Practice in front of a mirror. You can even do a Zoom recording like I am now to share with you. And with the Zoom recording, you can play it back and just see how much your hands bounce, or whether you can rest your hands and make gestures that kind of add to what you're saying, maybe lower the noise level. And that way you can self-coach, you can self-edit, you can self-audit and improve your nonverbal communication and dilute, avoid those bouncy distractions that people sometimes have as if they're conducting an orchestra. Waltzing or walking aimlessly on the stage. I'm standing up and I could be sort of walking around and the camera zoom's going to take me out of focus and into focus, but on a broader stage, and I am speaking at the Scouts convention here in Perth on Saturday, so in 3 days' time, and that will be a big stage, and there'll be a lectern. And so walking on the stage back and forth aimlessly is seen as distracting, is seen as noise. It's sometimes called the cat on the hot tin roof. That pacing because you're going to burn your paws or burn your feet. Now, do use the platform. I will be using the platform on Saturday for purpose. I'm going to have a flip chart to one side. There'll be a PowerPoint behind me that I'll use sparingly, and there'll be a whiteboard on the other side. It's going to be a big auditorium with the Scout leaders of Western Australia, and I will walk to one position on the stage. I'll engage that part of the audience and I'll settle. And I'll stay there for about 60 seconds. And then I'll relocate to another part of the stage, settle and speak to another part of the audience. I can still eye contact with everyone else in the room, but just be more present for that part of the audience, that segment of the room, for about 60 seconds. And then I'll move further again, resettle, reorientate, maintain eye contact with the whole room, and settle and spend a minute for them. If a question comes up, I'll go over to the flip chart, record it down. If there's something that I feel a model, that I can deconstruct something using a model, I'll go to the whiteboard with my whiteboard markers and I'll draw something on the board. Using the platform is important, but it's the side-to-side walking that can create the noise and the distraction. I was lucky enough to see Bob Geldof at the exhibition centre a number of years ago now, probably 10, 12 years ago here in Perth. And for 90 minutes, he just walked from side to side, back and forth, almost incessantly. And it may be his fitness regime, because Bob Geldof is a very skinny man. Inspirational speaking, Sir Bob Geldof. But for me, the constant walking just diluted his ability to engage and get the message across from my perspective. You'll sometimes see stand-up comedians and they're just walking around. If you've ever been to a TED Talk, I've been to several TED Talks here in Perth at the concert hall. You'll see the TED Talks on the TED channel. There's a red circle and the speaker is instructed to stay within the red circle. And that stops that incessant walking from left to right. I think the red circle is a little bit constrictive from a professional speaking perspective, but the main aim of TED is to capture good quality video to share with the world. So it's less about the people in the room. It's important for the people in the room, but the good TEDx videos go viral on a global scale. So if someone's walking back and forth, the camera, the quality of the camera crew may not be able to really capture that, and hence the red dot. So avoid this incessant walking, this aimless walking on stage. Don't be a cat on a hot tin roof. The other thing that's noise is and distracting is PowerPoint slides with the writing that's too small to read. And a lot of scientific conferences experience this, and someone will put up some data and they'll say, look, you're not meant to read that. You're not meant to read that. The reason I've put this up is to illustrate. If you can't read it and you're not meant to read it, don't show it. Don't show it. It is really distracting. And if there is a segment of the data that's important, then put that in bigger font, put that in bigger text so people can read it. Yeah. I do have a little tip for this particular problem. And let's say you do want to show something and the writing's really small. So it might be a newspaper clipping or a scientific report. And there's a particular bit that when reading, you'd highlight, with a marker. Wow, this is really important. You can get yourself a Spotlight, a Logitech Spotlight PowerPoint controller. And this has a magnifying function. So I can use it to move my slide forward. Slides moved forward and the PowerPoint slides are too small to read. The council sets rules on body language. Here in one of our city councils, Melville City Council, there was a problem with non-verbal communication and they had to create a code of conduct. they had to create a code of conduct. And according to the document, raising one's voice, taunting or trying to undermine others' arguments, or attacking a suggestion that's a dumb idea or that won't work is a breach of the code. This one will enable you to magnify some fine text in a PowerPoint slide. I use Ringo Starr quite often to help people understand the role of nerves. Ringo Starr is one of the Beatles. He's also the original voice of Thomas the Tank Engine, that children's TV show. And Ringo's nickname is Pukey in the Sky with Diamonds. He often vomits, is physically sick before each presentation. And I show this article. Ringo Starr, despite 50 years, he's frequently sick, despite 50 years in the limelight. So this is how, if you need to share some text that's small, you can get the Logitech Spotlight, which will enable you to magnify a particular section rather than just point to it. The normal clicker I use is also Logitech, but it just goes forward, back, and I can also bring the slide down. And it has a laser pointer, so if I want to point to something in an auditorium, then I can use this normal clicker. But on the occasions you need to magnify, I really enjoy the Spotlight. This one's very expensive. These are fairly cheap. The point, the error, the noise here is putting a slide up like that and saying to you, look, you don't need to read this, but Melville City Council had to put in a code of conduct, and huffing and sighing and rolling eyes are a breach of the code of conduct from non-verbal communication. Don't show something that's too small. I've got a bonus tip for you as well, by the way. The icebreaker activities that do not relate to your core message. I hate going to workshops where they start with an icebreaker. Let's all line up, have a chat, line up. Who travelled the furthest today? And when I used to live in the country and I'd come to Perth and go to a workshop, I would have travelled 250 kilometres, maybe 400 kilometres. I would often be the furthest person, and someone in Perth would be there, and we'd have to check out how far we'd travel. And 5-10 minutes later, we've got this perfect line of who travelled the least distance, who travelled the most distance. And then we moved into a workshop on business writing. I'm confused as to how that icebreaker activity related to the workshop, and that was a cognitive noise. And so for the next hour, while we're going into that particular segment of business writing and write so a 12-year-old can read, and I'm still trying to work out, well, why did he need, it's to break the ice so we can meet each other. But have an icebreaker activity that relates to your core message. That particular icebreaker might work okay with a negotiation skills workshop. And then you can deconstruct the icebreaker. So you now know each other, you've found out where people have travelled for, you've had a little bit of a conversation, but who took the lead? Was there any negotiation? Did you have to move people back and forth as you discovered more about each other? That would be an icebreaker that is related to what the workshop, the core message is then about. The other icebreaker I hate is human bingo. And we have a sheet of paper, and we've got to go around the room, find someone who speaks French, find someone who's been to Spain, find someone who plays a musical instrument, find someone who follows the Dockers, find someone who is a grandparent. And each time you find someone, you can tick that off. And when you get all the boxes filled, you can shout out bingo. All right, let's now move into our time management workshop but hang on, we've just wasted 10 minutes playing human bingo. So please understand, make sure your icebreaker activities and any other activities you do relate, are aligned to, and add value to the core message, the workshop that you're doing. Otherwise, it is noise. And I in particular will be thinking, what on earth is going on? And my ability to focus on what you want me to learn will be diminished. I've actually written a blog on icebreakers. It's on my website. Just go to the blog article. You can put in the search engine icebreakers, and you'll find out a lot more about my view on icebreakers from a professional speaking perspective. The other noise, lots of filler words. Lots of filler words. These are your ums and your ahs. And for an auditory learner, someone who learns and pays attention through listening, less so visual, so they don't see the bouncy hands. You can bounce your hands all you like. That doesn't bother me because I'm an auditory learner. The ums and ahs and the filler words will cause the distraction. There's a little video on YouTube of Caroline Kennedy, the daughter of JFK. She was 5 when JFK was assassinated, and she uses the word you know, and there's 50 you knows in 5 minutes of video. And it's really distracting. It's really distracting. So be aware of those filler words. And once again, if you're practicing for a session and you record yourself, you can then play that back and count your filler words. Are you an ummer and an ahra? Or do you do a you know? So you know what we need to do next, you know, and then you know what will happen is, you know. Actually is a word that doesn't actually mean much. And if I actually didn't use actually in the language I was actually using, I'd actually make more sense actually than using the word actually. Obviously what we have here is miscommunication, and what we obviously need is clarity of purpose. And then obviously we can all get on the same page. And as a group, that'll obviously help us move forward. Obviously. Like. This is a young person's filler word. My 3 adult children use the word like repeatedly, and it drives me crazy. Like, Dad, you should have been there, you know, like. It's a really good thing, and I think we should all consider it like. So probably my filler word that I am trying to reduce when I'm running workshops. So what I want to talk about next, and so what that means is if it's used too much, then it can be perceived as noise. Another one I'm hearing quite a lot is in Australia, yeah, nah, yes, no, yeah, nah, yeah, nah, I agree. Is that a yes, I agree, or a no, I agree? Yeah, nah, that's a good idea. Yeah, nah, yeah, I think we should do that. Nah, yeah, nah. Be aware of those filler words that really don't mean anything. You know, what they're really doing is trying to buy a few seconds just to gather your thoughts. My view is that silence, also known as the pause, allows you to gather your thoughts, allows you to move on to your next point without the noisy filler word. And it sounds more credible, sounds more intelligent. What's your filler word? Do you have any filler words? If you can reduce them, now, please don't get me wrong. No one will completely eliminate their ums and ahs. It's only if it's so frequently that it's distracting. My bonus tip, distracting. I hope you're admiring my painting in the background. My picture of curry trees, the curry forests in Manjimup in the southwest of West Australia. This has no bearing on this conversation. And so in reality, before a webinar, before an online seminar, I should remove it. I sometimes see people's libraries in the background and I'm looking, oh, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Good book. Yeah, that's a good book to read. And then Susan Cain, The Power of Introverts in a World That Won't Stop Talking. And, oh, that's an interesting book. I haven't read that one. I wonder what that one's about. So just be aware, even with the backgrounds behind you, that can cause some distraction. So in summary, avoid these noisy, distracting behaviours. The clicking of the pen, the rotating of the reading glasses, the jangling, the playing with jewellery, bouncy and distracting hands in time with what you're saying, as if you are conducting an orchestra. Waltzing, walking aimlessly on the stage. The waltzing is the 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, side together, right, 2 steps forward, 2 steps to the left, 2 steps back, 2 steps to the right, 2 steps forward. This is a little square dance, by the way, and after a while that will drive you crazy. So I like to stand mostly still, and then I move to the platform for purpose. PowerPoint slides that people can't read, why would you put it up? Icebreakers that are not related, and those, you know, like filler words. And is there anything else in the background that may distract your audience? Next 2 webinars coming up, public speaking stats that you need to know, 4th of August, 5 ways to build credibility on the 18th of August. Workshops, Port Hedland, Perth workshops coming up on the 25th. My name's Peter Dew. I've recorded this webinar should you need to review it. You can reach me. Here's my email, peter@peterdew.com.au. I mentioned the blog post on my website, corporatecommunicationsexperts.com.au. And so, please avoid noisy, distracting habits, behaviours when you're doing public speaking, when you're leading a presentation, when you're leading a meeting. This is Peter Dew, Corporate Communications Experts.